your thing.
Well, I always say I never met a microphone I didn't like, but I don't like this microphone. I'm telling you, it's dangerous. It's going to stay way the heck away. Thank you all for coming. This is an impressive turnout. I thought you would be afraid to be in the same room with a convicted domestic terrorist. So this is makes my heart feel good to see so many people would risk coming out to be around a dangerous criminal like me. Some of you have read my story in the local press. Well, it's not my story, it's the Department of Justice under Joe Biden's story. And we even had a Republican supervisor candidate call for me to be arrested because I was an insurrectionist. He was endorsed by the Republican Party. So when I hear Bob talk, yeah, everything you said is so right on. But another thing that I think as Republicans, and this is the dedicated of the party here today, is to get real and to stop believing these people that gave us COVID, that gave us that vaccine that made a lot of people sicker than the disease did. There's been so much pretending boys can be girls and girls can be boys, pretending that you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're a bigot. And we have all been through the anti-bullying campaign, so we knew to just hang our heads like the racist, bigot, homophobes we were. So, anyway, I'll tell you a little bit how I got in my latest trouble, which was the January 6th thing. I was, first of all, I knew the election was stolen. And I may have to convince some of you of that. The 2020 election, but I won't waste this time now. But I have knowledge of it because I was in a group called the Dead Voters Society. And because I know interesting people, someone put me in that group the day after the election when I said, BS on that shit that happened in the middle of the night. And the guy put me in the Signal group. And next thing I know, with all these statisticians from Claremont, some very famous code people, some heavy hitters, and the only names that I will mention because, it was a secret group, we were working privately, but Bernard Carrick was one of the people. He's deceased, and so I feel like he's off the hook. Rudy Giuliani, several people who were indicted in that Georgia election BS thing were in this group. A lot of celebrity people, influencers, and people were proving all the different ways. I have no talent other than a great memory, and I have been a passionate person when it comes to politics. This is football for me. I love this sport. So I have a memory that goes so far back, and I know how the game is played. So one of the statisticians from Claremont, a very talented lady, she put me on her team, and I was helping gather information on congregate living voter fraud. And the interesting thing about COVID, that the congregate living, we're talking about nursing homes, homes for people with developmental disabilities, and there's always been a lot of fraud in that situation, but there's also been family members that check ballots. This time, what happened is there was 100% voter turnout. So we were trying to connect the managers of these homes to find the syndicate, because this was an orchestrated thing. So I know that Trump won in 2020. I'm not crying about it because everything is played out the way it should, including me being arrested. I didn't like that. But the newspaper that came out about 2 years after January 6th, the news started reporting that the sedition hunters had identified me through facial recognition. I thought maybe the FBI having all of our ATM records, the geofencing, the fact I went through TSA, the fact I was on Twitter saying, hey everybody, come to the 6th. I didn't sneak there. I proudly showed up. And one thing that is not talked about, and this is kind of crazy to me, we had the most beautiful morning of speeches with Rudy Giuliani, Don Jr., John Eastman, all these brilliant people talking about the election fraud, but we were not angry. We were not, we were cheated. We were just like, we were inspired. It was like every kind of thing that you've seen at a Trump rally, the gatherings that we have all been a part of, where we back the blue, where we show up for candidates. Nicest people you'll ever meet. And when President Trump told us that now we walk peacefully and patriotically down to Congress, it was a show of support and for election integrity. We were not trying to block anybody from going in. Excuse my language, but we had no pink pussy hats on. We were not there to shout people down, silence people, interfere with a process. The head law enforcement officer of the United States, our commander-in-chief, invited us to a permitted event. And here's where I got really lucky. I always am thinking, where's the toilet? Where's the toilet? So on Thanksgiving, one of my friends brought an aide from Matt Gaetz' office. I'm like, hey, think you can hook it up with a toilet when we're walking down to the Capitol? And she's like, sure. You know, it's going to be busy, but I can let you into the Dirksen building. Well, it's pretty crazy when it's happening. There's like so many people. They tell you how many tens of thousands. There were over 1 million people there that day. And I decided, because I'm considerate like you are, I said, honey, my husband was with me and 3 other friends. I said, honey, let's go to the hotel. Let's not bother this person whose name I won't give. And so we went to the hotel room. We separated off from our 3 friends, and that put us on the east side of the Capitol, which was the lesser violence. There was some funny business going on. And we all know each other here, if not by name. We know our people. We know who we are. And there were these young men with Trump t-shirts and a lot of times Trump flags as capes. They had black Antifa helmets on with Trump in white medical tape taped on the back of it. And they were banging on doors and windows. And mind you, we were on the quieter side. We weren't where all the scaffolding and you see these violent loops on the news. So we just backed away from them and we talked like we would all be talking at a tea party or a Back the Blue rally or one of these events. And we're all saying, oh yeah, those guys, hey, look at that. That looks like Antifa to me, and we just stand away from them. Well, after they banged on doors and windows for maybe 15 minutes, the magnetic doors, because this is a very secure city, very secure building. It's another thing, you know, they knew where everybody was at every minute. The magnetic doors go open, and these militant young men, mostly, was what they were. I don't think I saw a woman among them, or an old person. They enter the building. We're like, wow, this is weird. We're talking. And the Capitol Police in black uniforms at the doors were nice, but there were like a few sprinkling of like just weird things happening, but whatever, it's DC, trying to go with the flow. After about 15 minutes of milling about, the velvet rope tourists start exiting the building. The people that you've seen pictures of that seem to be nicely, respectfully walking through Statuary Hall. Well, my husband had never been to Washington, D.C. before. And he was, how was it in there? What'd you see? He was so excited. And I've been as a chaperone on D.C. trips. I have lobbied against the Shumash expansion on my own dime. Where I, by the way, I got hooked up by a very powerful donor, so I got in a lot of restricted areas. You know, so that's allowed there if you know the right people with money. But so I've been for that trip. I've been on a news thing where I was helping a friend with a press conference. So I've seen Washington, D.C., and let me tell you, it was a lot nicer in my previous trips. But I asked my husband, do you want to go in, honey? Because they were letting people in. And I would never breach a police line. I would never enter a building without permission, even a public building. Once again, told by my commander-in-chief to go down there, had RSVP'd for a permitted Stop the Steal rally. And my husband was so excited, and we turned to the police. Is it okay if we go in? Sure. And other people were going in. We went in there. He saw Statuary Hall. Couple of weird things in there, and one was another one of these young guys that didn't seem like one of us. He was standing on a bench saying, F this is our effing house. And every one of us that walked by him said, excuse me, sir, that's disrespectful. Please, that's not what we're doing here. More people started coming in. There seemed to be gas coming in. And then, all of a sudden, it just started filling with people, and I'm looking around, and every one of those entrance is filled with riot cops. And there was another person that obviously wasn't one of us, and she was a little lady about my age, but she was short, and she was up in one of these riot policemen's face saying, "F you, pig, F you." And I just, like me, I know I'm named Karen, but I wasn't doing it in a Karen-ish way. I just went up and said, "Excuse me, we are not here to protest the police." And the cop she was yelling at looked at me. He took his billy club and hit me across the stomach. And I folded, and I'm thinking, oh, I walked into a trap. And then it occurred to me what had happened. We were brought in and attacked. So it was so insane at that point, I had to find my husband. I knew he was somewhere within 30 to 50 feet of me, but by then the room was full of gas, and it became chaotic. And it's so crazy. I see some of my friends here, and this is another weird thing about it. All the people who know me from Tea Party, candidate stuff, actually believe that a bunch of us were mad that Trump lost and we got a mob mentality and went crazy. But and then others believed my story that heard it, but man, they didn't want any part of that. They didn't want the FBI coming to their house. So I see, you applauded Diane Mazer. She wrote a beautiful letter in support of me publicly, as Kathy Herringer. Kathy Herringer is a tiger. You should have seen her taking on all comers on social media. They were saying, she should be arrested, she's a seditious, blah, 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 blah. Terry Caslow, my friend who has been there for me in every way. Probably a lot of people who were supportive of me, and it was a pretty small group. Mr. Fechner, you were kind to me on the Current as well. But the local press just kept running these press releases. So what am I going to do? I knew I was going to be arrested. The stuff that you read in the paper was 2 years after the FBI came to my house. And I, unlike you guys, I'm a little tougher. I'm rough around the edges. And when the cops show up, I don't talk. So the FBI, they had to stand on the other side of the gate. And what do you want? We want to talk to you. You're not in any trouble. Well, what do you want to talk about? Oh, January 6th. What about it? Did you see anyone planting explosives at the RNC or DNC? Are you freaking kidding me? That's the most ridiculous question. Once again, they have cameras everywhere. They know exactly who planted that stuff. They did it.
Oh, yeah.
It was a setup. This was a choreographed trap. And I'm telling you that this was Kent State meets Tiananmen Square. Some of the finest Americans are who showed up because we knew what happened.
Yeah.
We care about election integrity, and that, if you don't fix election integrity, it doesn't matter how much we donate, show up, whatever. That has to be fixed for sure. So in this situation, I would probably have got the 6 a.m. Roger Stone treatment, except I had already, before the FBI came, as soon as we got home from Texas, we were scheduled to go to Texas because we're evil insurrectionist, whatever, jihadists. We were volunteering to help get a Gold Star camp started in Texas. We were there, and it was at Kinky Friedman's ranch, and nobody's kicking in Kinky Friedman's door. That guy, he's like a press magnet. I always tell people, fight me, you're fighting a naked person. Where do you grab? So I went to Kinky's, did our camp thing, came back, and as soon as we got back, that's when the FBI came. So that's all. Then, a couple years later, the media starts saying we're identified by the sedition hunters. They use a hacked video of me, and I love Barry, right? You do a great job leading the pledge. And that's what I did on the steps of the Capitol, USA. I'll chant, but I love pledges. And I had just been taking my pledge of office for the Community Service District, where I was reelected. I was a very strong and popular leader. I ran for a third term while I was under house arrest and was not allowed to attend meetings or, Anyway, I not only lost, I lost badly. And some of the conservative groups that wouldn't endorse me said, controversial, it'll get a Democrat elected, we just, So, all the people who know me, I felt like I was a 15-year-old pregnant teenager again. All these friends. All of a sudden, I was like, oh, about her. So that's okay. I can take care of myself. And every bad thing that's ever happened to me has ended up making my life better. So I thought, okay, you want to tangle? My son was having marital problems in Texas, and I've been visiting him. Oh, I was on a no-fly list, so I'm driving back and forth 1,600 miles every month or two. My son's marriage gets in deeper trouble. He's going to get a divorce. He had moved to Texas to escape the horrible mask mandates and vax threats of California. Had 3 small children. Had nobody in Texas, but he and the wife and the 3 kids went there. Texas isn't for everybody. It was a little tough for multi-gen Santa Barbara gal to live on a ranch. Marriage fell apart. I went out there, and my son, while he was going through his marital troubles, comedy is so therapeutic. And he's not a comedian, but Tony Hinchcliffe, who you may famously remember as the guy that told the Puerto Rico garbage joke at Madison Square Garden 10 days before the election, he has the most popular comedy podcast called Kill Tony. And he pulls comedians' names out of a bucket, and your job is to kill him. You've got to make Tony laugh. So my son's going to the Vulcan Gas Company doing this. I come out to Texas the week that show then moves to the grand opening of Joe Rogan's Comedy Mothership. Joe Rogan, the most popular podcaster, a lifelong liberal Democrat who cares about truth. When you talk about reaching people who maybe have been Democrats, not all Democrats are dirty, lying fakers. There are a lot of good people who are Democrats who will not go along with this. Boys can be girls. And call him Oliver, not Olivia anymore. Joe Rogan just wants the truth. So I thought, this is great. I am going to get on his show. I'm going to get up on Kill Tony, and I'm going to tell my Jace story. But you got to have a minute, and it's got to be funny. I've never done comedy. I've been laughed at and mocked, but I've never actually tried to do it as a stand-up routine. But I've been working on my minute. We went every week, from the first week in March, and about the 16th, 17th week, I get called. And I was so lucky because I had this minute, but I'm not a natural comedian. There was this nutty lady in the alley wearing a t-shirt. She had a pink cape on, and she was, woman's lib champion or something. And she had this vulgar shirt on that said, "Pussy is the new dick." So I thought, okay, that gives me something to work with. But I went out there and I said, yeah, some lady in the alley out there has a shirt that says, "Pussy is the new dick," but I'm pretty sure Karen's the new dick. And that got me going. And then I went into my minute, and my minute was on, hey, I see young ladies out there. I know you wanted to be treated equal, but back in the day, before we had equality, we had preferential treatment, so you're kind of blowing it. And so I talked about that, and Theo Vaughn was Tony Hinchcliffe's guest, and they had a great time with me. It was fun. All they wanted to do, because I'm an old lady, and they wanted to know how I had sex with my husband, and just asking me things because I have fun with the old lady. And I wanted to talk about January 6th, but here I am at Joe Rogan's Comedy Mothership, which is the premier comedy club, and okay, how do I work this in? And then all of a sudden Tony's like, "Karen, you've been a great guest, we love you, and when you kill Tony, you get a big leather joke book." And he's telling me, he's thanking me, which is my exit line. He throws me the leather book, I catch it. I'm missing my opportunity. Tony, you still don't know the most interesting thing about me. And nobody does that. Nobody has ever held a joke book while they continued their interview with Tony. It's wild. It made me a legend automatically. I also became the longest interview in history because Tony played a guessing game. What's interesting about her? She's been to prison, she's adopted, that kind of stuff. I said, my local paper has said that I am a white supremacist. And that just like, oh, they had to hear about that. And I told him the whole January 6th thing, and he was like, oh, you were at the Capitol? He was so excited, and they said, how close did you get? And I let him know I made it all the way in. Well, then that's when the local paper came out like, amateur comedy show has seditionist, insurrectionists mocking her for seditious behavior. Whatever, it was the nicest story that the Independent had ever written about me. I mean, they used good pictures of me that looked like from the 2016 supervisor's race. I was slim, my hair was dark. And Nick Welch, most of the people in this room don't like that guy. But you know what? I do kind of like him. He's funny. And we argue, we joke around. And I think Nick kept that horrible communist neo-Marxist, whatever his name, Tyler, whatever, that guy that does all the writing now, from being as mean as he could have been. Like, they called me all these names. But there was a hacked video, and they used this video also in my arrest warrant. So many things were interesting about statement of facts and arrest warrant. My officer that filled out his sworn warrant against me was hired in December 2020 as a counterterrorism expert for the FBI. Pretty interesting to me how many people were hired as counterterrorism experts right before January 6th. Yeah, and I love this about Trump, he is laying out the narrative right now in a way that children can understand. And you're going to find out, it's going to blow your mind what has been perpetrated against the American public. Voter fraud, deep state shenanigans, the Brennan, all these people are horrible people, and they care about globalists. They don't love America. President Trump loves America. Amen. He was my last choice, by the way, in the primary 2016, and the more those guys hated him, the more I liked him. Because he could not be bought, he could not be bullied, and I loved that my husband and I went through hell in a tiny way, the same way he was. And that he kept fighting back, saying, so what, and not going away. And I didn't go away. And I started doing open mics, and I kept putting my name in that bucket. And all of a sudden, I'm a real comic now. I'm doing podcasts, Drinking Brothers, the Black Rifle Coffee Company. I've done events with them. I've been on so many smaller podcasts. I now am the senior correspondent for the biggest comedy news show on YouTube called Joke World. And I was at Madison Square Garden last weekend. I flew Spirit. This is all very expensive. This whole thing, the process is the punishment. They break you. And my dear friend Terry, who does our taxes, she knows I'm paranoid. I think everything is because J6 that we hit a bump. The entire county got a tax extension, filing extension. She tried to do extend. We were the only people that they said no to. The entire county was a blanket extension. And Terry's like, yeah, maybe you're not paranoid. When the federal government wants to screw you, was it Schumer who said they do it 7 days to Sunday or whatever? They do, and they make your life so horrible. I was almost arrested at the Austin airport, but I wouldn't accept my rights being read. I had my daughter on the phone and my son on speakerphone. Ask them if you're being detained. It was like so crazy. I just once again, they're fighting a naked person. I managed to stay out of the gulag, but I drew the worst, maybe the second worst judge, Burl Howell, Burl the Pearl. If you read about Burl Howell, she's right up there with Jeb Boasberg, just this Trump-hating, lying person. But I was going to fight it. I got Zero Hedge famous, article about me. I was going to fight this thing. But then I had to get real. You know, there was a 100% conviction rate in jury trials, a 98 in front of the judge, and even the 98, 99% had to do with, they'd find you guilty of one of the 4 charges, and off on the other 3 or something. But then you'd have to do between 1 and 4 years in prison. I felt bad. I went to a J6 reunion on Memorial Day, and yeah, they really had those. It was crazy. My husband and I were out in the wilderness. We had no contact with any J6ers. We kept very quiet between our 3 friends that went because they were on the other side of the building. We didn't want anyone to get in trouble. Google sent us notification that our entire Google search history from the beginning of Google time was given to the FBI. You know, just the things that they put us through. And our crime was, we had a choice. We could choose between disorderly conduct, which I was not disorderly. I said the Pledge of Allegiance before I went in. That's why I loved your pledge. I said the Pledge of Allegiance when I came out. There was an open mic going on. What'd you see in there? And I said, my name is Karen Jones. I'm from Santa Ynez, California. And I never thought I'd be gassed by my police. It's shocking to me. But I want to lead us all in the pledge. And the pledge has always meant so much to me. And I look at my son-in-law, David Scott over there, he's shy, I'm humiliating him. But when he married my daughter, they were married by Judge Brian Hill. I don't know if you know him, but he's a good man. And he asked, would you like a special something done at the beginning, a prayer, a poem? And they requested that they begin their wedding ceremony by having everyone say the Pledge of Allegiance. And that surprised Judge Hill. He said he had never heard of that before. David did 2 tours in Iraq. He's a first responder now. Also a real estate broker. But my daughter works in a local attorney's office, and she devoted so much of her life helping these. You wouldn't believe the probation forms we had to fill out. We had to, besides all of our legal fees, I wanted to get a libertarian law firm and fight it. My kids are like, Mom, you're going down. You get Bob Sanger. He's married to a judge. His partner became, this guy is so connected. And it was a good move. We got him. He and I disagree on everything. He had represented us before in a real estate lawsuit. So anyway, he was our attorney. He didn't come cheap, but he's efficient. But the things that we were put through because we love our country, and I don't feel like a victim any more than Trump does. And we can't be victims. We have to fight back. And a lot of J6ers, because I'm living, okay, when I went to Madison Square Garden last weekend on Spirit Airline, I'm thinking, gee, I wish they'd put me back on that no-fly list. I had not been this poor since I was a newlywed, or maybe a single teen mom. I don't know. But I've never been happier. My life has never been better. You know, we're living in a little tiny old house in kind of a hillbilly part of hill country. And it's nice. It's Trumpy. There's deer everywhere. And I drive to all these open mics. I do these podcasts. And you talk about getting people who haven't voted before. The Bernie Bros, even some BLM people. My daughter was watching some of my interviews from Madison Square Garden saying, oh, Mom, you're cringe, but sometimes, you know, it's just like it works. Because I'll just go up to a black guy and go, hey, I'm not racial profiling you, but were you in BLM? And I'll just start talking to him. Because people like frankness. That's what Trump has. He's a genuine man. And we need to be genuine, and we need to be proud of loving this country. And the people who were with me in J6, you know, going through the ordeal that I met up with, that I never met before in Fredericksburg, Texas, some of them, well, Trump isn't doing enough to help us. Said, help yourself. We're Republicans, for crying out loud. Get on some podcasts. Once America knows this story, everybody is going to react like they did to Kent State. Americans don't like Americans treating its citizens that way. So I'm going to keep telling jokes. And I planned this trip. I'm so happy. I love Linda. I've known her for years. And I was so excited to come back here. And then something bad happened. I was really funny at the second most popular comedy club. I got invited by some New Yorkers to do a show there. Because, you know, I don't hang out on 6th Street in Austin except for the Kill Tony stuff. But I went to this thing, I did well, and it got me on to the other mothership, the smaller stage. And the booker there invited me to come back on Monday for a audition to be a regular performer there. Woo! Yeah, at an Eden from the Comedy Store and have a mothership. And I'm like, you know, I've used opportunity is an obligation, and I didn't even think twice. Of course, I'm going. And then I'm walking out all pleased with myself, going, I'm going to be in Santa Barbara. Oh, no. I'm making it happen. I'm getting another Spirit Airline ticket. I'm going to take my fanny pack with a clean pair of underwear. And I'm flying, doing my audition, and I'm flying home back here and continue to visit with my family, enjoy my grandkids. But that's how you do it. We're Americans. We're Californians. We are from the people who settled this frontier. And we need to take back our country. Yeah. Try to be fun while you do it, folks. Make it a lot more likely that you will be successful. Have a good time with it. And just remember that, you know, bad things, they just seem bad at the time. It's where the good stuff really happens. And winning is swell. We all like it, but we don't take anything from it. And, you know, I wouldn't trade my experience. And I barely only cried. I cried once with Terry, I cried once. You know, when I'm talking about kids, people are going to prison. My real estate guy in Texas, not my real estate, my insurance guy in Texas served 4 months for praying outside of an abortion clinic. It's not just J6ers. There was political targeting that has been going on, and we didn't hear about it because, and I mean, a lot of you probably watch Fox News. They weren't talking about this stuff too much. Now that it's safe, now that Trump's elected, people are getting a little bit more willing. But go to the alternative news sources, listen to podcasts, talk to people. But what has happened, however bad you think it is, it was really so much worse. To think, there was a woman in her late 80s who had actually was a Holocaust survivor that was sent to prison by this Merrick Garland's Justice Department for praying outside of an abortion clinic. It's more common than you know. So anyway, we cannot let this happen. We defeated Hitler. We're not going to let these little pansies push us around. Look at who's been in charge. They are not tough. Talk back. Start saying, so what? Shove it. You know, whatever you need to do. Don't be rude. Don't start fights. But don't let people call you a bigot or a racist. I'm going to say tranny if I want to say tranny. And I've got tranny friends. My grandkids don't understand. They're like, Grandma, you said boys can't be girls and you're friends with Juanita and you call Juanita her. I said, I don't like heroin addicts either, but I got some friends who are heroin addicts. There are all kinds of people in this world. I may not like them as a group, but if they're cool to be around, I'll be cool with them. But nobody gets to demand that I like them or tell me I have to accept something. It was so much cooler to be friends with gay people before I was ordered to. I mean, it's taking all the edge out of being an original. So, anyway, I have the gift of gab. Yeah, I need the hook. Kara, you did not do a good job.
You're looking at me.
Whenever I look to compliment your husband, who I so dearly love, that's when you should have been going, yeah, do the sign. But you guys have been wonderful. I love that so many will turn out to support a convicted terrorist. I was pardoned, but I have not yet been vindicated. But it's coming, folks. It's coming.